Today we're going to do a build that's going to prove to be the most expensive build I've ever done. Seriously, this casting is going to cost me a fortune. Don't go away. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm not even joking. The casting you're about to see me do, the custom that I'm going to make, is going to cost me so much money. Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you. It gives me not just diarrhea, it gives me the kind of diarrhea you get from eating at Taco Bell, okay? Just thinking about how much this is going to cost me. But it's going to be worth it. You're going to love this, so let's get to work. So this casting is about one thing and one thing only. In fact, the entire build, everything about this video that you're going to see today is about one thing. Testing out some decals sent to me by Paul Bechtal of Diecast Graveyard. So you guys know I kind of brought you decal printing using the HP and the Ghost White toner. Well, Paul dialed that up and took it to a whole new level using an iColor 560 printer. A lot of differences. I don't want to go into all of those today. But basically, it's a better system, and the whole goal here was to just try these decals out, get a first-hand look at the quality, and see what was going on. So Paul sent me some decals and told me to get myself a gasser, because he was going to send me a gasser decals, and so that's what we're going to be doing today, all around the idea of trying out the decal set he sent me. And so while we're looking at the steps that I always go through, instead of talking about those, because you've heard it a million times, we're going to talk about the whole decal thing here. So I've had great success with the HP and the Ghost White toner. There is a problem, though. The Ghost White toner really is just a workaround. It's a way to print white, but the printer was never really meant to handle white. So this is a workaround. And like anything, when you're jury rigging something and you're doing these workarounds and stuff, there's always going to be some kinds of issues. In this particular case, one of the biggest issues is registration. You can actually print an underlay of white and then print all your colors on top of that using this system. But because it lets the paper go and it's a two-pass setup, when you put it back in, it's almost never completely registered. That means you need to do what's called trapping, where you make the white layer a little bit smaller than the color layer so it doesn't stick out the sides. Well, when we're talking tiny little decals like you need for a diecast car, that really doesn't work out too well. So I've taken to having to put decals on in two layers. All the decals I made color decals and I made white decals. And then I would go through and I would put all the white decals on, let them dry. Then I'd go through and put all the color decals on, let them dry. And it was a big thing, okay? It wasn't the end of the world, but, it was the only way to make this really work out, okay? At least to the standard that I wanted it to be at. So, yeah, that's how I've been doing things. Now, my doppelganger, my evil doppelganger, Paul Bechtal, he went out, sorry, Paul, just kidding. He went out and found the iColor 560 And it is a true white toner printer. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is it will print white in a single pass. So what you would do if you wanted to do an underprint, meaning put white underneath your logo or include it in the art, you would replace the black cartridge with the white cartridge, and then you would click print. This would line everything up. It would print the white down first, put the other colors on top, and to get black, it would create black by mixing cyan, magenta, and yellow and give you your black. The end result here is that everything is perfectly registered because it's one pass. It never lets go of the paper, and it just comes out lined up perfectly. Huge difference. Huge difference. I had to see this thing and what it does. Now, Paul had done a video on it, and I watched it several times. But, proof is in the pudding. You want to handle this stuff. You want to see this stuff. So he sent me some Fire Chief Gasser decals that I'm going to be using here today. And this is going to give me a chance to look at the decals, look at the quality, put them on a car, and see what I think. So I had a laundry list of things I wanted to look at with these decals, and the first one was the resolution. If you know anything about, well, pretty much any printer today that's based off of CMYK, the way it makes different colors is by blending these colors together. And so let me give you an example. Let's say I want a lime green. The printer's going to put down a solid yellow base and then a dither or a dot pattern of blue on top of the yellow. And these dots will be so small that hopefully to the naked eye, you can't discern the dots. All you see is a new color as your eye blends the blue dots over the yellow and makes it look green. Now, sometimes devices struggle, and then the dots are a little too big. And you can, if you look really close, you can kind of see them. And that's no good for anybody. So I wanted to see how these decals were going to look. And I got to tell you, I was really impressed. No matter how hard I looked with my naked eye, I could not see the dither pattern that the printer was using to produce the different colors. Now, with almost any print from any printer, take your phone, you zoom in real tight on something, you're going to be able to see the dot pattern, and I could do that with this. I could see it then. But as long as you can't see it with the naked eye, that's what really matters, and I couldn't see any dithering at all. So I was really happy to see that. The next thing that I was really interested in getting a look at was registration. Do you see slop from the white around where it shouldn't be, like around the edges and stuff like that? And again, the answer was no. I don't see any slop. Everything was registered perfectly. Totally lined up. No slop, no white where it shouldn't be. This was a huge deal. I mean, it really was a monster thing, because this would mean that I wouldn't need to layer decals anymore. And that's a big thing. So I was glad to see that. So I needed to see the opacity of the white. Is it very white? I'm doing the Fire Chief car in red, because red is one of the toughest colors to decal over. It's not quite as bad as black, but it's pretty tough. And so if the white will look white and look opaque on a red painted car, that's a good thing, and it does. I gotta tell you, once I get the decals on this car, I am blown away. the saturation of the yellow, the the solid deep white where white is, and even some of the gold lettering in the words Fire Chief, it looks gold, which it isn't. Now, I'll tell you, there is a metallic cartridge out there, silver and gold, for this printer, so you could print those colors. But you don't need to, because this came out fantastic. It looks fantastic, and I was so thrilled. The minute I laid the first decal onto the car body, the minute I did that, I knew I had to have one of these printers. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that, you know, this casting dipped into my pocket, okay? Because it made the decision for me. I was on the fence about this thing. I already had a white toner laser printer set up for making decals. Did I need this? Once I saw Paul's decals lay down over the red paint of this casting and saw how vivid the colors were, how opaque the white was, that afternoon I ordered my printer. And we're still, this is a knock on the printer, is that it's the software you need to rip these files is PC only. I had to buy a laptop to drive this thing, so there was extra expense there for me, and that was one of the things that was really holding me back. But you know, I was blown away once I put these decals down. Now, look, I'm going to talk more about it here in a minute, but I just want to say that once my printer gets here and everything, I'm going to do more videos on this so that you can see it in action in my hands, so you have multiple points of view, because I'm basing all of my commentary today simply off of the samples that Paul sent me. So I want to get in there and make some decals for you, and maybe do another gasser. Maybe I'll take a page from Paul and do another gasser, because I had a lot of fun with this one. So there's going to be a lot of other videos. I'm going to gloss over a lot of things here today, because that's not what this video is about. This video is about this car and testing out these decals and seeing if this was something I wanted to pull the trigger on. So after getting a look at these decals, the last thing that I was concerned about was the black. Because you have to replace the black toner with the white, it has to make a pseudo black out of the cyan, magenta, and yellow. But you'll see here in this casting, like on the grid on the roof, it uses a lot of black, and it looked great. I was worried it would look a little washed out or something. It doesn't. It looked fantastic. And once I put clear coat over it, it just made it even pop more. And so at the end of the day, there was no problem with the quality of the black print. It looked fantastic. I was very, very happy with it. And you know, I was a little surprised, honestly. I'm not a big fan of these made-up blacks, because they kind of look muddy and more like a brownish than a true black. But in this case, that's not what happened at all. This looked very black, and I was very happy with it. Now, I'm going to have a link where you can buy one of these printers if you want to just jump right in based off of this. I'm going to put it in the description. But, you know, you can also wait until I get my my printer in and do some more videos if you'd like to. But I'll have all the information where you can get one of these in the description down below. And I'll put the price right here somewhere on the screen so that you can see that. And that way you've got at least some room to start thinking about this. In the meantime, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take you through the rest of this gasser build. And then we'll get a look and see what it looks like at the end with these fabulous decals made out of the 560. So as long as I'm doing a build, I might as well do it right, even though it's meant for testing purposes. I might as well do it right. And honestly, in race cars, gassers and old school funny cars are my favorites. So this was fun for me to do. The first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to put these real riders on that I got from Second Chance Redlines. But to do that, I had to put in some axle tubes, and I had to modify the interior a little bit. Fortunately, I was wise enough to make sure and do a test fit. So I took the screws out of the body and tried to put this all together before I painted it to see how it would come together. And sure enough, parts of the interior were, not being allowed to seat because of the thicknessity of the axle tubes. So I had to do a little bit of work there, modification there, and that paid off in spades. I got some really cool drag wheels on this car, and it still has its gasser look and everything. I'm very happy with what I did here, and I'm super glad I had the forethought to think to try this before getting too far into it. So after a little bit of work with some nippers and a file and my X-Acto knife, everything looks like it's fitting back together right. So I'm going to be able to take all this apart, put the screws back into the body, and then we can go ahead and turn to a paint job. Now, as you know, when I'm doing an opaque paint job, I prime my cars using Tamiya Fine Primer, so that's going to happen here. We'll give it a nice coat. This stuff is amazing. I love it, and I'd put it on everything if it weren't for the Spectraflame, wanting to see that polished metal effect underneath it. This stuff is fantastic. I swear by it. So we'll coat the car with that and let it dry. And while that's happening, I can go ahead and turn my attention to mixing up some paint. So for the opaque red paint, I'm using the urethane paints from the Redline shop. This is I think it's called Competition Red, and we mix that up with a little bit of the hardener. Get it all stirred up, dump it into the airbrush, and we are ready to lay down a beautiful coat of red. And I'll tell you, this paint is the best. It dries fast and hard and smooth as glass. It's beautiful, and that's going to be important for these decals. I want to give these decals every chance to shine. So, yeah, now I can go ahead and lay the paint down like I normally do. Tack coats, medium coats, and then wet coats. Set it aside to dry. The tack coat is really there to help the paint cling to the car. The medium coats are there to build up your color, to make sure it's dense enough. It's the wet coats. That's where the magic happens. And if you nail that, you're going to get a beautiful, glossy, wet finish. It's going to be fantastic. It's worth the practice. It's worth working with an airbrush. And there, honestly, there's just no substitute for practice. Okay, get some junky cars off the pegs at Walmart and paint them. Okay, over and over and over again. Make sure you can see those wet coats laying down, and make sure everything is nice and smooth and wet, and it'll pay off big time in your finished products. All right, let the fun begin. The casting is drying, and while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting out the decals. Now, these decals, like my previous setup, you still need to trim them really tight. Paul did an amazing job of fitting these perfectly to this casting. They really did. They lined up so well. It's not even funny. But you still need to trim away a lot of the excess carrier. So you're going to want to cut tight to the decal, okay, as tight as you can to get rid of some of that carrier. And these are going to be big decals. The ones on the side go from front to back of the car. And so there's a lot of material there, and you want to get rid of as much of the excess as you can. So I've got all the decals cut out and set up and ready to go. I'm just making sure I know what I'm doing. I've got my water, I got my brush, I got decal tweezers, Q-tip, toothpick, and Solvaset from Walthers. So I think I kind of know what I'm doing here. that would be a first. And we'll dunk the decal in the water. And one of the first things I notice is Paul's decals feel different than mine. They come off the backing almost immediately, and they felt really light. And I asked him, he's using the same manufacturer paper, Sunny Scopa, that I use, but he's using the light paper instead of, I think I'm either using medium or thick. So I'm going to get some of the light because I really enjoyed this. I liked the quality and thinicity of the decals. So I've dotted some drops of water on the side of the car. The decal is loose on the backing, and I'm just going to kind of slide it off the backing paper and onto the casting. Then we'll fidget it around into place and make sure it's all lined up. Now, I got to tell you, I'm already seeing this happen, and I'm already wowed by this because I can already see where the decal is touching the car, how bright these colors are coming out, and I'm already floored by this. Right now, I'm just giddy. Okay, I'm loving everything I'm seeing here. So I can't wait to get them all on and get this car done at this point because I'm pretty excited. And so here's the decal for the roof with the black and yellow stripes. And, I told you about the black, and this is where I could really, really see how the black looked, and it looked fantastic. There was not a single issue with the black. I think it looks amazing, so no worry there. Put it on like the rest of the decals. We've got two sides, a roof, a trunk, and we're in business. And this car is going to look amazing. So after I got all the decals on, and trust me, I'm really trying to do this to the best of my ability because I want to give these decals every chance. Now I'm going to lay on some Walthers just to make sure that the decals nestle down onto the car and really conform to all the shapes and bends and panel lines and whatever else might be there. So a little Walthers on all of the decals, and then I'll set this aside to dry. Okay, so as it were, I was already super excited about these decals. Now I'm going to put the clear coat on. And yes, I'm using Paul's clear coat. It's great stuff. I love it. But wherever I was at before I laid the clear coat down, my excitement level is going to go up by a factor of 10. Because once the clear coat is on there and it's all dry and everything, this looks so amazing, and the colors are so brilliant. It just I'm it takes my breath away. I actually, that evening after everything was dry, I sat there and just would stare at the body like a gem, and just looking at it and ogling it and thinking to myself, man, this looks amazing. This is really, really great stuff. So yeah, I was cranked before the clear coat, but let me tell you, once I put the clear coat down and got to see the car that way, oh man, I was just hook, line, and sinker. So while the clear coat dries, I decided to turn my attention to the engine. This casting is actually very detailed in that sense. The engine is molded into the interior. It's all chromed out, but it certainly could stand to benefit from a little bit of painting. So I'm going to use some Tamiya flat white and paint the headers. And then the carburetors are going to get a kind of a bronze color. And then I'm going to paint in between the fins of the blower, I'm going to paint in some red to really tie this all together and make it look like not just a gasser, but like a show car as well. It should come out pretty neat. Once I'm done with that, I can set this aside to dry. In true gasser style, this comes with red glass. And it's brand new. It looks fantastic. No need for gauzy. I'm just going to leave it alone and not mess with it. So we're just going to leave that be. We'll put it in at the end. So now the body is nice and dry, and there's some stuff in the engine compartment that I want to get to before I put the car back together, like the master cylinder for the brake, and there's some kind of a detail on the passenger side. I'm just going to paint that flat black, but I'm going to paint these little details inside the engine bay before I put this back together, just to keep a lot of visual interest going. I got to tell you, these decals look amazing, and I'm super excited to put this sucker back together. So we're going to pop in the red glass that I told you about earlier, and then the detailed out chromed interior with the great engine, pop that back into place, and this thing is already looking just sick. I am so excited. This thing is coming out just absolutely beautiful. And then last but not least, I can go ahead and fit the base on, and using a couple small screws, I will screw this back together, and then just short of a little bit of detail painting on the outside, we're just about done with this. This thing looks amazing, but I couldn't help myself, and I had to take one more step using a little bit of Molotow chrome. I felt like I needed to do the taillights, the front markers, and the headlights. So a little bit in a container, I'll take my brush, I'll paint those in, and then I can go ahead and call this done. The best part is we can now sit back and take a look and see what we have, paying special attention to these decals. Let's take a look. All right, here it is. My Fire Chief Gasser, which in and of itself came out amazing. This car looks great, okay? By any measure, this thing is drop dead gorgeous, okay? I'm so happy with it. But like I said in the video, I had to buy a whole new laser printer. And not just a laser printer. Those are not cheap. This is a specialty laser printer, and you know, like I don't want to go too much into it because when the printer gets here, I'm going to do an entire video about it. And I'll talk more about it. It's not all that bad, depending on where you're coming from in your life, and I'll explain all of that. But right now, it sure is just a shot to the ticker for me. You know, I felt my plaque start flowing. It is what it is. But look at the results you get from the darn thing, okay? This printer is going to be a game changer, and I'm going to love it just as much as I hope you love this video. If you did love this video, please give it a giant thumbs up, click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. As always, if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. I love to hear from you guys. All right, that's going to do it for today. I hope the rest of your day doesn't come packed with any huge expenses or shots to the ticker like I'm going through right now. Oh, well, I'm going to shake it off. Okay. I'm going to get out of here. This is Paul from Flitz Products saying, be good.